If not, I'll go ahead and start now.
Okay, I just hit the record button.
Oh, great. Okay, you're taking care of it for us. Thank you, Sharon. So the breakout group is going to run for about 60 minutes as far as I understand. And, Erin covered sort of what the goals are. We're focusing on transportation and distribution packaging, which for the purposes of this conversation is really thinking about transportation and distribution and not consumer facing packaging in a retail setting. So thinking about shipping containers and pallets and things like that. So I hoped we could start by doing some introductions. And as Erin noted, everyone here probably has a very different level of baseline knowledge. It's coming with a different background and perspective on this particular topic and material. So I just want to open it up to have people share your name, your organization, your role, and briefly share some context about how this material intersects with your work, or what you're hoping to get out of the conversation today, and maybe what brought you to sign up for this breakout group. Who wants to kick it off?
I can. Hello, everyone. I'm Claudine Ellian, and I'm the Commercial Waste Reduction Branch Chief at MassDEP. I've been with MassDEP for about 8 months now, so I'm relatively new. I also work with Recycling Works on technical assistance for businesses and institutions, and I supervise a few different areas, including compliance and enforcement with the waste bans, the bottle bill administration, the recycling business development grant, and work on some organics data analysis from time to time. Previously, I was actually a sustainability officer at MassArt within the facilities department and managed multiple waste streams there.
Great, thanks, Claudine.
Hi, I can go next if you like.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Paul Benoit, and so I'm a co-founder of a company called Box Save, and we rent plastic moving bins for residential and commercial moves. And if you've ever seen the Peapods boxes, they're like those. They're 27 by 17 by 12. So we rent packages to consumers, 20, 35, 50 box packages. We drop them off at the person's house, they move, we pick them up at the other end. The boxes are made from recycled materials out of Columbus, Ohio. I think it's Columbus. We started the company with 500 boxes in a truck, and now we have 6,700 in 2 trucks, 3 employees. We're part of a group, we call ourselves the Box Pirates, that are across the country and in New Zealand, where we bounce ideas off each other. So this business is growing across the country. Our biggest, here in Massachusetts, our biggest issue is small consumer awareness. It's growing, but it's a small consumer awareness. We're doing word of mouth and Google ads and stuff like that. But yeah, we started it as, I have to be honest, I was with the financial services industry, and I was taking time off, and my wife said, "You can't hang around here." So we started this company, and it's actually been pretty good. We meet a lot of nice people, a lot of people who care about the planet. So anyway, that's us.
Paul, could you just repeat the name of your company?
Sure. It's called Box, B-O-X, Save, S-A-V-E.
Oh, okay. I had it right. Okay, thanks so much. Why don't I go next then? I'm Sharon Byrne-Kashida. I'm with MassDEP, and I am a regional municipal assistance coordinator, and my district is 39 communities north of Boston.
I'll just go right now, right after Sharon, because I'm also with MassDEP as a municipal assistance coordinator. in my area is 36 cities and towns northwest of Boston.
Hi, I'm Melissa Houston, and I have been working with different municipalities to pass styrofoam and plastic bag bans. So I worked with Somerville when I used to live there, and recently I moved to Wakefield and just passed the styrofoam ban here. And so I joined this working group just to kind of learn more about it and see, you know, what I can do, you know, at the local level.
So I got to talk to a lot of you people already. My name's Marie. I'm from Sustainable Sudbury, and Julia, it's nice to actually put a face to our conversations that we've had.
Yes. Nice.
And I am in a similar situation as Melissa, but you know, Sudbury, we've been working with the high school, actually, the environmental group there too. In the past couple of years, single-use bottles and plastic bags. And this past town meeting, we were able to pass no straws, or the little, I don't know, little spoon thing. I don't get these drinks, so I don't know what they are, but just things that end up being used once and tossed, and really contribute to the waste stream. So Melissa, I'm going to be very interested to speak with you later, because styrofoam continues to be just a really, we've been collecting it for 40 years and trying to find partners to you know, send it on its way in the interim of trying to do bans. So it's really, it's the inertia is tough to overcome, but anyway, I'm here to educate myself as well, to try and we're also looking at trying to do curbside, well, the long view for Sudbury, because it's a farming town, you know, that they don't want to give up their transfer station. They have this attitude about curbside collection, but everybody contracts. So we've got 8 different collectors coming through town, which is insane. So just, you know, that kind of stuff, looking at trying to streamline the waste stream and obviously reduce it. So I hope to learn a lot from you all.
And yeah. And I'm Laura Lillienkamp, and I work at the Design Thinking Initiative at Smith College, which is a really small makerspace. And we are trying to become more environmentally aware and eventually zero waste. And as a kind of side project to that group, I've been helping start this new network, which is called the Western Mass Creative Reuse Network. We came up with the name like a month ago, very new, but the goal of that group is to try to redistribute industrial commercial waste to maker spaces, maker groups, teachers, people who could reuse it on mostly a smaller scale, but larger scale is great too. So I'm very excited to be learning from all of you.
Great, thanks, Laura. And do we have one person on the phone? Looks like they just unmuted themselves, but not sure. Well, if we have you on the phone, feel free to jump in, stop me, and introduce yourself. But thank you. I think we got everybody else's introductions, and we are definitely all coming from fairly different directions on this topic, which I think is a good thing. And so Paul, you shared, some of what your challenges, what your company is facing, but that is kind of one of the places that we're trying to dig in is what challenges are you facing when it comes to expanding reuse? So whether that's, in your work, building awareness, or within your community, or at, in the design thinking initiative, just kind of what are some of the biggest challenges in expanding work in this area?
Certainly a major one for our new reuse network is just storage space. So when you're dealing with really large quantities of waste that are like really useful, no one wants to store them. And all of the institutions we've been working with have basically said, no, like we don't have any space. So I think that is the biggest area that MassDEP could be really helpful in, is providing just storage space.
Okay. So,
Education is a huge one. Education to, regular people, just get the word out. I mean, most people don't even know what to recycle curbside. So it's just like education is the biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of this.
So my town just on that topic, my town just, I live in Arlington, and they just implemented a fine that these are the things that will take into recycling. And if you have something in recycling, we'll put a sticker on there and says, this doesn't belong here, and they'll leave the recycling, the whole thing. And the next time it happens, you'll get a fine, and they'll leave the recycling. So, but I think with education and consumer awareness, you're right. I'm always being told, nope, that doesn't go there because it's black and it can't be scanned. Okay, now I know. So now I get to toss those things away. But then I get in my head, then why does the supermarket still use the damn things? So,
Right.
Yep.
Anyway,
Could you speak a little bit about your business, right? So you're in the business of providing reusable, recycled content, plastic containers to customers, and I'm sure you want to grow your business, right? What do you see the challenges are for your achieving that goal?
We're slowly growing. Like I said, from 2016, we had 500, now we have 6,700 boxes. We're growing about 25% a year, although this year we're down 3%, which is actually pretty good. To us, it's the consumer awareness. We're making phone calls to moving companies, and moving companies, some of them will use us, but moving companies sell cardboard boxes as part of their package, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of them, have used us, and a lot of them want to start their own, but they have to realize they have to clean the things. And we're kind of like, yeah, the more the merrier. There are more companies out there. It'll be better for us, better for the business, better for the environment. But it's our biggest, it's consumer awareness. And everybody we deliver to, and I'm not exaggerating, loves it. We just meet nice people. They care about and these are all millennials, and they care about the environment, and they just absolutely love it. So, and it's easy too, because we drop them off, we pick them up. And
where are your service areas?
We do Greater Boston, but we have if you look at our website, there's a map of where we deliver for free. So it goes out, so anything past Framingham, we'll go anywhere, but anything past Framingham, we'll start to charge a delivery fee, and that just pays for my driver's time. And it goes up in increments on the distance, but it pays for my driver time and the fuel. But I have to go to Tewksbury this afternoon. We've gone up as far as Maine, a 4-hour drive up to Maine. We've gone out to the western part of the state. I have to go out to Wilbraham, but I charge people, a lot of money for that stuff. But it's just the mileage that I have to pay for. Other than that, it's like I said, it's Greater Boston. We've done the Cape. We'll go anywhere. We just have to fit it into our schedule.
And if you drop the boxes.
But you can do. I'm sorry.
Just to say, so you drop the boxes off to, let's say somebody is moving.
Right.
Is that an example of a typical customer?
Yeah, so so you can get 20 boxes for a studio, or 35 boxes for a 1 to 3 bedroom, or 50, 65, 75. We'll drop them off empty. They're on dollies, so you can wheel them around the house. And there's a stack of, we stack them 18 high, and that's because that's what fits in the truck, the height. So we stack them 18 high, roll them in. And yeah, we just drop them off and people load them up. Movers actually love them. It's a lot cheaper for the person who hires a mover, because the mover has to, because you usually pay them by the hour, and they get done a lot faster because they stack easily.
Right.
So, you get the box, you put in the dolly, fill it up, close it, wheel it around the house, stick another box on top of that, fill it up, close it, wheel it around the house. It's a lot easier on your back.
And so what happens if this young couple is moving from Arlington to New York? How do those
We
boxes?
don't. Anything like that, we'll say, no, we don't do out of state.
It's all, okay.
Yeah,
So
so we're trying to figure that out, because there are two companies in New York. There's this woman we met with in DC, and she's actually pretty big. She's grown that company really well. We're talking to her. We're talking to a few other places around the country. And this is it's not the main issue, but it's one of the questions we have. How do we service cross-country stuff?
right. So you could set up reciprocal arrangements or something. Okay,
Right.
wow, that's great. Thank you.
I just looked at your website. It looks great.
Thank you.
Paul, can you speak a little bit about the commercial, how you service commercial customers and what opportunities you might see there?
Sure. So right now we have about 400 boxes with Sam Adams. They've had them for over a year, and they're going to keep them for another year because they're doing renovation. We do a lot of attorney offices. We work with the delivery I have to do in Tewksbury today is part of this gentleman owns a company, Furniture Resources, Office Furniture Resources, and he hires us to deliver boxes to the different companies that he is hired out to. That's awareness as well. We've had meetings with Avalon. We've had meetings with all these other developments that grow up around Boston. We'd love to have 4 or 5 of those places that they just use us because they have massive turnover. Whenever we deliver to them, the concierge is always saying, this is great because, they don't have to deal with that cardboard mess that's downstairs. You know what I mean? We're down 3% because businesses kind of froze up this year. So, yes, so it's slowly but surely we're getting into that market as well. A lot of it's word of mouth, but it's office moves, etc. So good.
Yeah, I was just going to ask because, so where do you do your marketing? I really would like to send your information out to all my municipalities, put on their website.
Sure.
So how do you market? You said word of mouth, but what have you been doing?
We do it on Google Ads. There's also the MRLS. My partner does most of it, but on a weekly basis, there's or maybe it's monthly. The real estate business creates these are the people who bought houses list. So we do a mailing to them, and we do a mass mailing. We'll pick several different development buildings, and we'll just do a mass mailing to them because we know the turnover is pretty high there.
Right.
And we've got some business there. So right now, for every $1 we spend, we get about $4 back, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But we're also, I say word of mouth. I hooked up with this guy when WBUR was renovating their studio. They used our boxes. And then this gentleman went to work for the Chelsea Soldiers Home. And they're using our boxes now. And the the EPA that's in Boston, downtown Boston, in PO
Yeah.
Square. Yeah, they used our boxes as well.
Oh, great.
So we've hit some state stuff and some federal, and we've actually done some people on Hanscom Air Force Base as well. So does that help?
Yeah, great.
So I want to ask, I guess, put out there, one of the questions that we're putting out there is what other models you've seen, whether that's out of state or even out of the country, when it comes to transportation and distribution, maybe at a larger scale as well. One example that comes to mind is the company Raytheon in Massachusetts. They have a ton of really interesting programs where they have, I think, kind of leveraged their purchasing power to have suppliers, use reusable pallets and receive, chemicals in reusable drums. And that kind of thing, I think, is really interesting and can make a really good business case when it's reducing waste and saving money, and becomes cost effective very quickly for a transportation or distribution company if you're using materials twice or many more times than that. Are there other examples of interesting initiatives or strategies that you think might work in Massachusetts, or would be something for DEP to look into further?
I don't know if this is a good example, but after Laura spoke, it made me think of a piece I heard on NPR, I think yesterday or the day before, about a professor up at University of New Hampshire who recycles and repurposes election signs. And I don't know if anybody else heard that. I think she was using, I didn't realize that there was cardboard and then it was corrugated plastic over that. That was news to me, but they were making kind of adaptive, a kind of an adapter for an iPad for somebody that has disabilities. And it was really great. She might be a great resource for you just to talk about how she has set this up at UNH. And I'm sure I'm hoping if you Google it, you could find this, and how thrilled she was to be repurposing a lot of these election signs that were maybe causing war division in our country, and putting them to a higher use. So
yeah, that's great.
And yeah, this is off topic, but for election signs, we are collecting them. So if you have election signs or know of people with election signs, that's like one of the first things we decided to focus on collecting and trying to redistribute, because there's a lot of ways to reuse them. And they're all over the place right now, and they're non-recyclable.
all right, well, we want to know how we get those to you, because there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Great. I am going to put my contact information in the chat.
Great. I'm just going to say that I've been involved locally with my Democratic City Committee for years. And the problem with these signs are that they slightly make all of them a little bit differently, so that sometimes you can't really reuse them, because I'll say to the Democratic City Committee, are you taking these particular ones back? And they'll say, and not just for the metal, because the metal, of course, is worth something too. And they'll say, no, because it's not going to fit our next signs, so it's a big frustration. So I usually throw them in the metal pile.
So Laura, I think it's interesting that you brought up storage as a challenge for reuse, since we are talking about source reduction and reuse. I'm curious, especially from if you have examples of, transportation or distribution packaging from a commercial entity. Like, what are those materials that that we have so many of that you need storage, and what kind of opportunities might there be to reduce those materials to begin with?
Yeah. So right now I actually don't know of like industrial level packaging supplies, which is part of like why I joined this group. I actually don't know much about it at all, but the things we have in excess, I will also put in the chat, but we've started a list and they're mainly based on companies that we've reached out to individually and said like, what kinds of waste streams are you producing? And out of those, are any of them things that are actually useful? So we've gotten a lot of like linens and like plastic, different kinds of plastic tubing, these political signs, but that's on more of a residential level. I have a lot of like really interesting scrap materials from laser cutting and 3D printing on also a smaller level. So basically what we found is that usually these materials will find a home, but it can take, like sometimes it can take years to get to connect them to the right people, especially when those people are smaller groups. It would be, yeah, the dream would actually be to work with, Recycling Works or MassDEP on really redistribution from commercial entities to commercial entities, but for individuals, there can be like months that go on, and then like a teacher is doing a project and they can use a lot of like white sheets and then we can give them to them. So it's that like transition period that is the challenge. Storage. So
Yeah.
also companies want to get this stuff like out of there, yeah.
Yes.
As far as like pallets are, I mean, lots of people reuse pallets to make, different furniture items or stuff like that. So if there's a place that like at the state level or the municipal level that people can like go to get pallets, like as a collection site or something, then, I think that would be helpful. So that like, I'm a part of, so many Facebook groups like Buy Nothing and Zero Waste that are like, hey, does anybody have this material? Does anybody have that material? If there was like a single place to like go get that material that people can drop off and go and get it, that would be helpful.
Is there such a, Lauren, does Recycling Works have anything like that?
No, we internally, we do for our staff that are answering the hotline, we kind of take notes of places that are looking for or do accept weird materials or strange things. Although that is sort of that's the reverse direction of what we normally do when we assist businesses in finding an outlet for their materials. So, in some instances that could be a place like Laura's talked about where it's going to be stored, material could be stored and used for a different purpose. But for the most part, we're trying to help build those sort of business to business connections more, where materials are going to either be recycled or reused as intended, to make sure that there's really like to try to build the infrastructure. But we don't have we're not the right channel, I think, to match make in that direction.
Yeah.
So we use a company. When we bought our first boxes, they were used. And then we bought about 5,000 that were made for us, and then another 1,000 or so that were used. And we bought them from a company called Reusable Transport, and they're out of Florida. But if you look at their website, they have, those plastic pallets that Pepsi uses, so they have all that stuff. I'm not sure if they'll take everything in, but for us, if we get boxes broken, we can ship them back to them. They'll buy them from us and they'll recycle them back into their process. They'll buy them for us for pennies on the dollar. And we haven't done it yet because it just, we don't have that many broken boxes. But you may want to check out their website. And I have a contact down there if anybody wants to talk to the person. It's a guy named Doug Hughes. I'm not sure of what scale all this you guys are talking about,
Mhm.
but I know that this is what they do. Reusable transport.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think this is a very interesting and unique material to think about because it's not necessarily being manufactured, generated in Massachusetts. I think there probably is a lot of crossing of state lines happening. And I
Yeah.
took this down. I'll definitely check out this company, and I think that'll be something that Erin's interested in.
And you know, so, since I go back pretty far, but I can't remember what this was called, but either DEP or OSD had like a forum that they would post, or maybe it wasn't either, but there was a very active forum of, okay, this is available. And maybe sometimes it had prices, but it was significantly less than if you had to pay retail. So maybe I'll check in with Brooke, see if I'm sure her memory's better than mine on this. It'd be nice to have, you know, some kind of, maybe Laura, maybe it's design thinking. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what your threshold is for that. And I guess the other question I had for you, is this a student-led initiative?
It is not. It is Western Mass community members, but we are hoping, so there's like student involvement, but it's very cyclical. So we're hoping that like there'll be a different student group working on this project every semester from Smith.
Okay, well,
Um,
that's good news, right? So
Yeah.
you're not a graduating senior or something like that.
No, I'm a full-time staff member, and the most of the group is actually community members. So I put myself here from Smith College, but really I'm also here as like a Western Mass community member. And yeah, fundamentally, like that's where the responsibility for this program would lie. And I would love to see something, because yeah, none of us have the right experience to help companies reduce waste streams. So I think a really cool like goal for us in the future would be to partner with Recycling Works or someone else so that they could help companies reduce their waste, and then we could take whatever was like left over at the very end. Ultimately, yeah.
So, yeah, here are some thoughts that I've had in another group that we were talking about this as well, is that I feel like that I feel like that we should not focus so much on storage space, although I think that's part of the equation, because what's great about these networks that we have so far, and Buy Nothing and others, is the fact that you bypass the storage space. You have the end user connected right away to the person who wants to get rid of whatever the material is, you know, if it works, right? But then like what Laura's saying is like, what about that in between point where, you know, you don't have a place for it to go right away? So I started thinking about like, well, what looks similar to this? And I think like maybe like the Greater Boston Food Bank. Why did that get created, right? Every single, food program in Massachusetts is connected to them. So they kind of bring everything in, fresh and canned stuff, and then they parse it out to all these different programs all over the state so that there's as little waste as possible, you know? And I feel in a sense that that's what we need to somehow create. And it's a big endeavor. And I always criticize the Greater Boston Food Bank because I don't like the fact that the CEO makes about $38 million a year for in a nonprofit type of thing. But anyway, regardless of that, what I want to say about it is this extremely sophisticated model, right? And I feel like, in a sense, we need this sophisticated model for the reuse community, where we have some entity, you know, that has all kinds of, you know, computer capability and networking capability, and really moving in and out to all different end users, as well as those that have this material left over, and that we should somehow, as a society, try to figure out how to do that if we really care about the environment. So.
Yeah, I know that Habitat for Humanity, has a lot of like building materials and household like appliances and old stuff that you can, go to their store. There's a big one in Boston and other areas, and just get like, building materials or household goods that are used. So that's one place that, is pretty centralized that people can go to, but I'm sure a lot of people don't even know about it.
Right, right. And that's just two areas. If we just think about building materials and we think about like boxes or whatever, but there's really, it's almost unlimited, right? And then if we had this kind of network type of organization, and then we had, different points where things might like stay for a short period of time, and also the decision to say, no, it can't be reused. We've got too much of a backlog, but we haven't figured it out yet. So how to move that too, because there have been organizations that were really good. And my favorite was like Extras for Reuse that was in Lynn and then moved to Peabody. And a lot of artists and teachers used it, but it didn't have a business model that was sustainable, and so they're defunct now. So we have to figure out what that business model is too.
I think it would be really great to, I'm going to reach out or look into this company in Florida, and it would be really great, I think, to be able to engage more companies that are in logistics or transportation and distribution of products, from a source, wholesale products from the source to the retailer and user business. And I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm wondering if in all of the work that you've done, kind of who are those players that you think we would need to tap into to make an impact on like a larger scale, and or what are the products that are being transported or shipped that require a lot of packaging or maybe have the potential to reduce packaging, or challenges. I think of food and beverage products for sure, a lot of items that are shipped in like waxed cardboard or for reasons unrelated to waste. And so that's one product, for example, where I think of this as potentially being a challenge because of the requirements that packaging has to have when, shipping a perishable food item or something that has to stay cold.
Yeah,
so a lot. Sorry, but any thoughts or reactions there?
Well, for example, Amazon, they have an option now that I don't think a lot of people know about, where you can say, reduce the amount of boxes or packaging of the items that I want into like, as few as possible. So you can kind of set that on your account, and but like they still will put in like those plastic like things for items that don't even need that protection. So it's just like trying to get to those bigger companies to say like, we don't need all this packaging in and stuff that we buy, like that's not breakable.
Melissa,
Right.
so I'm sorry, do you have an option to ask for reduced packaging? What's the option that they give you?
I don't think it's like clearly stated on their website. I just like found out about it through word of mouth, where you can kind of email them and say, I want as few, boxes or packaging as possible if you're buying multiple items, so that they can ship them all together.
Yeah,
One of the choices in the ordering process is to, rather than get it as soon as possible or whatever,
Right.
to consolidate the shipment so that, as you say, you're using a lot less resource if they're gathering everything first and then shipping it all at once as much as possible.
Right.
That's another
something on like your account that you could just put permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, and I know that larger businesses and institutions are really able to follow that same kind of model where it's not, you don't maybe have a huge impact as one customer of Amazon, But if you're Raytheon and you're telling your supplier that you're going to move to a different supplier, if they can't reduce the amount of materials that they're using, for your company, I think there's a lot of potential there to kind of sway the marketplace. And seen Mass Maritime Academy and Raytheon use that power, UMass Amherst. And I think that's one thing that MassDEP is thinking about is the sort of purchasing power that the state has for determining what vendors go onto state contract, and then state facilities go through the state contract to pick a vendor. So I think that's one area that the MassDEP is thinking about when we go into sort of the prompt question of what can MassDEP do, because there's an endless number of possible things that could move the needle or make a solution, and MassDEP definitely doesn't have a magic wand to be able to help all of those, help overcome all of those barriers. But I think that that's one idea that MassDEP has kicked around, is using state contracts to promote more sustainable packaging or give vendors certain points based on waste related characteristics in their services.
Yeah, I think that's something that, the local, town officials can also implement when they're in their purchasing. And have that be, part of a, everything that they purchase type of rule or criteria.
Yeah. Claudine, do you have anything?
I'm just gonna say something.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
so no, I've just, I've been taking notes. This is, I think this has been very informative. One kind of, I can just say previously, when I was working in the CNU sector, I was within the facilities department, but one kind of challenge or logistical hurdle I did see, in terms of, the potential for reuse of cardboard boxes was that the shipping and receiving department was within the purchasing department. And, kind of the management of all the different waste streams, was kind of out of facilities. So that's just another kind of challenge you may see in the CNU sector. Again, related to transportation and distribution of material, right?
yeah, that's a great point, Paul. I'm curious for the examples you shared with commercial customers. What role is the contact that you're engaging with? Are they usually in facilities or a procurement department?
There's for the smaller law firms, the administrative assistants. But for the Chelsea Soldiers Home or WBUR or Sam Adams, they're either project managers or directors or directors of development for the companies. Yeah, it's those are the people who, they're not the decision makers, but they're certainly, one-to-one with the decision makers. So.
Okay.
I actually had the same role with this firm that I worked for till 2012. But we use a company called Casey and Hayes. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them.
Yeah.
What was it?
Casey and Hayes. So they were an old company that they did all the moves in Greater Boston. And so they're defunct right now, but they use these big rectangular cardboard boxes that you maybe got 3 uses out of, because it would fold up once you get done. You got 3 uses out of them before they fell apart and you couldn't use them anymore. Then I don't know what they did with them afterwards. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, when you say they own, even if they only used them twice. I was looking at an older resource that Aaron shared with me that talks a lot about this topic and actually goes through and does some of the cost savings calculations. If a cardboard box costs this much and you use it this many times, it can carry this much weight. It kind of becomes a no-brainer to use reusable packaging, make strategic decisions about stacking and.
Yeah, so we did some numbers, and if you use, with my box, you can move 500 times. That one box, you can move it 500 times, and that's just, to me, it's indefinite because it's plastic. It's very sturdy. But to do those 500 moves would be about 50,000 boxes. And even a cardboard box gets, even if it's recycled, it can only be used like 3 times. Do you know what I mean? It's because after it's recycled 3 times, it's just slag. It's just detritus that gets thrown out. I should clarify that. So if I did 100 moves in my box, you used it 500 times. It's just so much less energy wasteful. I think a ton of cardboard uses 48,000 kilowatts of energy. It's crazy, just crazy how much it hurts. So I'll get off my pedestal.
I think one thing that we get a lot of beer from local breweries, and some of them have they use the recycled plastic, connectors for the cans, and some of them are moving towards compostable ones. But like I think that needs to be more of a mainstream shift because there's so much waste, and some of them are still using just the basic plastic. I forget what those things are called now. The rings. So I think if we could get more, beverage companies or breweries to like kind of switch to more compostable can rings, that would be a big waste reduction.
A great idea.
Around breweries, another big source of waste is brew bags, which are like the plastic mesh and are not recyclable anywhere. And I think there's only, I don't know, it's something crazy like there's 2 companies in the US that reuse them or something like that. But it almost feels like a legislation thing where in order to get people to reuse them, plastic is such a cheap material, you would have to legislate it in some way. And I feel like that's another challenge is just like, is with plastic is people see paper as this like more sustainable option, even though like what Paul's been saying is like you can't reuse paper. So I feel like that's just a separate like education thing where sometimes, if it's recycled plastic and you can get infinite uses out of it, that's actually much better than paper.
Yeah, I think we see, oh, sorry, I was gonna say, we see that come into play with compostable items as well. If it's consumer packaging and a consumer doesn't have access to a curbside composting or industrial composting program, then that material may end up in the trash or as a recycling contaminant as opposed to its intended, circular use.
Laura, I'm sorry, I missed what you said that problem plastic item was at the beginning.
Oh yeah, it's brew bags. So just like on the topic of breweries and what they could be doing better, plastic brew bags. So right now there's the bag share project, which is in this area in Western Mass that's taking brew bags and making them into reusable bags, but like that's not necessarily going to cover every single brew bag in the country. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, you said brew, BREW?
Yeah.
Okay.
They might be called something else.
I think like grain bags.
Yeah, they're grain bags.
Okay, yeah.
Birdseed bags, pellet bags, right?
Yeah, none of that can be recycled. Yeah.
There's a woman that makes reusable birdseed bags, though, and they're fantastic. She's not the only one, but they're fantastic.
Yeah, it's the same bags for like coffee beans and
Right.
So somebody mentioned, education. I, I think that it's separate from my business. I think the biggest issue is, one of the biggest issues is every town has their own recycling standards. They're all different. So if I bump into you from, I forgot your name, I'm sorry, from Wakefield, I bump into you and say, yeah, I can't recycle these plastic things that have the triangle with the number 5 in the middle of it, but you can. It's like, okay, then maybe I can. You know what I mean? There's no standard to me, then there needs to be a bit more regulation and a bit more standards and a bit more, okay, every town you need to do this, or everybody who wants to recycle, this is what you need to recycle. You don't take plastic straws because they come up the machinery. Okay, nobody puts, you know what I mean? There's just
there is actually like a standard, or MassDEP is working on it. And basically what MassDEP did a few years ago is they got together with all the materials recovery facilities to, they don't like to use the word list, but to create basically a list that they put into a recyclopedia, and you have access to that in Arlington now too. But basically the truth is that all these cities and towns thought that they all had different rules, but really where the material goes is the rule you want to follow, not so much on what the hauler thinks or doesn't think, because they may very well be pretty far behind on what is actually recyclable. So now we have that list, or the program recyclesmartma.org, where you can go up and look at the, go into the recyclopedia, put the material in and find out if it's recycled. And the only difference is, I'll just say, is that in Western Mass, there's a dual stream materials recovery facility that does recycle some things that the rest of the materials recovery facilities don't. And mainly it's cartons. Those are recyclable at those Western Mass materials recovery facilities.
Like the milk cartons?
Yeah, the milk cartons, yeah. And that's, so anyway, so we are trying to create that standardization because it really is standardized, even though it hadn't been formalized. And I say it's standardized because it's what's marketable. That's really what the materials recovery facilities do, is that they bale what's marketable, what they can sell, and then they sell it. So then before, there was all this stuff going in, and they would just throw it into those bales and ship it off to China. And China was complaining because they were getting a lot of trash in the recycling. And so that's kind of how China sword happened too. So now I feel like we are getting clear on that, but it's a really good point, because there is a lot of plastic that isn't recycled and isn't recyclable. And it's not the stuff per se that you can put in your bin. It's all those other things. It's the straws, it's the packaging, it's all these other pieces. So I don't know if anybody else in MassDEP wants to add anything. So.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree that, I think there just needs to be more awareness regarding, recyclesmartma.org, and just kind of getting that word out, and as well as, the technical assistance capabilities of, recycling works.
And then people like Melissa doing the really good work town by town of like getting rid of styrofoam and plastic straws, like Marie was talking about too, because all that stuff isn't recyclable in our system. And yet we have to educate the public, that we don't even need to use it, hopefully, and it's sad that we have to pass that town by town. But at least that's the beginning, right? And maybe one day there'll be enough political will to do it statewide and even nationally. So.
Yeah, I think it's confusing that so many products have the recycle symbol on them, yet are not recyclable, and also specifically for your local municipality. So I know that a lot of towns have that connection to the Recycle Smart on their website. I'm not sure if all do, but I think, pushing that all of them do would be, one step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then also, getting the word out to people in that town that this is your resource to check if something is recyclable or not.
So just as a little bit of background, the recycle triangle with a number was basically created by the plastics industry so that they could continue to say, oh no, but you can recycle this stuff, as just a way for them to continue to market crap in plastic that actually is not recyclable. But if we could only get all your bins being made out of old melted down plastic, Paul.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, to try and complete that life cycle circle. It's just, it's such a frustrating thing. Yeah.
I do know they're made out of recycled materials.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
So Lauren posted the link to recyclesmartma.org in the chat, just for everybody. And I think everybody here from DEP and Recycling Works are really grateful for that question, Paul, so that we could talk about that. And yeah, just the challenges of getting everybody on the same page, because for years I've had communities side by side, same hauler, different recycling rules, and it was
Crazy.
yeah. So now it's been standardized, so it's a very good point, and we're working on it. We need to do more work in other areas as well, but this is it's a great start. And Julia referenced the Recyclopedia. It has over 400 listings. You can go in and put in your black takeout container and it will tell you it goes in the trash. But there is a source for people's questions and there's a source for answers to their questions.
Yeah, and I think it's great to note also the Recycle Smart Partner program, which the Center for Eco-Technology is a partner, and it's one way for towns. Many of the towns where you see the Recyclopedia on their website, they're likely Recycle Smart partners, and any organization can be a partner, a business, school, nonprofit, municipality, and that can be a really good fit for maybe Box Save, trying to just kind of spread the word about Recycle Smart and good recycling practices. And they have awesome social media feed, easy to share stuff that is very timely.
So can I put this on my website?
Yeah.
Just as a button?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Please.
Thanks.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, if you peruse the resources part of Recycle Smart, you'll see some of the other kind of content that they have. And I think you just reach out to the contact address there to get registered as a partner and add the Recyclopedia widget to your website.
And there's another site as well you might want to check out. It's called Beyond the Bin. Lauren, do you want to talk to that? Or
I can a little bit if I don't mess it up, but yeah, Beyond the Bin is a great resource. Also, more for residential residents in Massachusetts to look up items that aren't, should not go in your curbside recycling bin, but do have an outlet other than disposal. So I can put that URL in here as well.
Right, so something like propane tanks would be an example, textiles. For some reason, I was thinking it was Recycling Works, but maybe it's not.
No, it's not managed by Recycling Works. What
Okay.
Recycling Works does have is a find a recycler tool on our website.
Okay.
The trick to that is because we're we serve the business community. These service providers are ones that offer services to businesses and institutions. So they're not all necessarily going to offer the same type of services at the residential scale, but we have, a drop-down list of materials. That's several dozen materials. And then we have businesses that have self-reported that they will accept that material either for pickup or drop off, and that they do have outlet that's alternative to disposal for that material. So that is a good place to start if you have.
Right. So there are tools. There are tools.
Yeah, I just typed in styrofoam to be on the bin, and I noticed that it doesn't have save that stuff on there. Is there a reason for that? Because save that stuff takes tons of materials to recycle.
So Save That Stuff will take styrofoam. I've had,
Okay, it just wasn't on the website beyond the bin.
oh, okay. So I guess that's Ann McGovern is the point person on Beyond the Bin.
Can you talk more about Save That Stuff and what it is?
Yeah, it's a company in Boston that takes tons of different materials to recycle, and they have anybody can drop off stuff there. It's in Charlestown, and they also do like they have a truck that goes around and picks up items too from businesses or other places. They do compost. They do, if you go to their website, it's a lot, like tons
I
of
would,
stuff.
if you're thinking about bringing styrofoam there, I would definitely call ahead. And it is literally located under the Tobin Bridge. And since I've been there, but the first time there, it's not the easiest place to find.
Yeah, and Save That Stuff is co-located with the Waste Management Core facility, which is centralized organics recycling.
Right.
They have a really cool partnership there.
Right. It's actually Save That Stuff's building.
Yeah, that the waste management leases.
Yep.
But that is pretty cool. I don't know how much time we have left, Lauren.
That is a good question. I believe that on the agenda, Erin had 30 minutes for reporting back. So I think we have about 10 minutes left if we're sticking to that schedule.
So with this group, maybe we could figure out like, well, either what needs to be learned or like who else to get in the room, I guess, or thinking about for this particular work group.
Yeah, and I think particularly this material, it is tricky. None of us are really experts in this area. And so I think it would be really helpful to know like who else needs to be at the table to make a difference here.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think definitely, from a business and institution standpoint within the CNU sector, definitely a representative from the facilities department, and definitely, I think a representative from shipping and receiving.
Yep, that makes sense.
But so I'm going to go back to Melissa, because you started out by saying you've worked on, and Marie, both of you have actually worked on bans in your town. Legislation I think is also another tool. I don't really know if we want to go down the road of EPR, but since several of us have been attending meetings that have been focused on draft legislation for packaging, for paper and packaging in Massachusetts, this certainly would be a way to drive sustainable packaging, right? So that it is, goes in a circle, right? It's created and it gets used, it gets tossed, it gets recycled, and it starts all over again. Is to get the manufacturers and everybody on board that this is what needs to happen. Instead of what really is happening right now, municipalities are at the end of the tailpipe, spewing out waste that's generated by their residents, that's manufactured by somebody that we may or may not know, that is not responsible for, sustainable management of that product. So, I mean, I think that's, another option that I think not just Massachusetts, but other states, and also on the federal level with the break free from plastics legislation proposed by Senator Udall and Congressman Lowenthal. Lowenthal's from California and Udall is from Utah,
Colorado,
Colorado.
Utah or Colorado, one of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Although I think I just heard he's retiring, so I don't know where that leaves that, but
New Mexico,
New Mexico.
cool.
Oh, and I should have known that. Thank you.
where my
Yeah.
parents live.
Oh, okay.
So what's the status of the Mass EPR bill?
Well, there are two that have really not gone anywhere, and there are hopefully there's going to be one bill that's going to be proposed early this year instead of two. And there are two different groups kind of working on it. There's mostly an environmental nonprofits that have been working on it, like Conservation Law Foundation, MassDEP, Clean Water Action. There are a few others. And then there's one that's mostly driven by, it's a municipally driven group, and trying to get this language so, we can agree, right? And move it forward, because we need each other.
Well, for the larger picture on the national and really global level, it really needs to be a complete cycle of whoever is contributing materials into that stream. So in other words, all these externalities that, oh, well, that's not my responsibility, is really that's the beginning of the problem, is that people aren't responsible for what happens to the product that they've introduced into the environment. And not my problem. That's ridiculous that it's not their problem, because, the subsidies that we give to certain industries and so forth, they're just not really helpful to, the health of where we live. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there, Paul.
Right. No.
So I just thinking, and you probably had these people on in previous meetings, but I was expecting more people from the moving industry, like from Gentle Giant or some of the other big companies around Boston or around Massachusetts. And this may be sort of like thinking way outside the box. The 1,000-pound elephant in the room is invite somebody who's an executive from Massachusetts from Amazon. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Are they doing anything?
Right.
Just to get in the room to say these, it sounds like you people have a lot of sway in what goes in and out of Massachusetts, or more than not me, but I would think that at least to get somebody from them in the room to say, are you guys thinking about this, or are you doing anything? So,
That's a great idea.
From my very outside perspective, I always think of Amazon as my personal shopping. Is Amazon do they serve as a WB Mason to certain businesses and institutions? Are businesses getting their supplies from Amazon?
They definitely do for like smaller ones, like Smith. I would say 50% of like office supplies, et cetera, comes from Amazon, maybe.
Okay.
The problem with Amazon is getting that executive because they don't have an easy way to even get in touch with their people. Probably you have to go through their government relations office or something to try to make a connection.
So Paul, you had mentioned that you worked with Hanscom Air Force Base, right?
Well, we had customers on the base, so yeah, we had customers on that base.
Because I think that's a great opportunity right there. And I say this because my son, who just got a job there, he's working in transportation management operations, which is moving what he's working on personal goods, and it's for all military, not just Air Force. There are two hubs in the United States. I'm sure he would not want to come to one of these meetings, but I wonder if I could find somebody to talk about that, because I think there's an area of influence that we could have to, to get our services, our local governments, our state governments, and our federal governments, is to walk the walk, talk the talk.
So to your point is, I was in the military for 20 years as well, the National Guard. And I've got a bunch of friends who are in there too. One guy was with the Special Forces. And the way they move things, they didn't use cardboard or anything. They used these big plastic containers. That's what they moved there. They were plastic secured containers. They cost an awful lot of money, because it's government spend. But they knew how to do things. I mean, they just knew the loads. They knew.
Right.
But that being said, it's a closed environment, because the people, the unit that's going, all their equipment is boxed up and they go with it, and then they come back with it too. So,
right.
But anyway, logistically, they knew how to do it.
Okay. Well, I may do my own internal investigation.
Yeah, great.
I love finding all of the interesting family connections through our staff that tend to make Massachusetts feel like a really small world when you start talking about all of the different connections we have outside of work to the same topic.
Well, did I see a note? I thank you, everybody that came into this room. I'm sure you probably all feel the same way. I've learned a lot from each of
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for contributing, and Sharon, for your report out. I appreciate
Well, we'll see.
You'll do
So
a great
will we get,
job.
Lauren, will you send out contact information for who has been participating in this group?
That's a great question. I will make sure that happens. That would probably be Erin or someone from her team that's sending that out, but I'll make sure to ask that question and get it to you.
That's great.
Okay, so I think I'm going to hit the stop recording button. I think I saw we had 30 seconds. Thanks everyone again.